Hello and welcome to Daily Prelims Practice. Here we are going to take up the MCQs based on today's newspaper of The Hindu and Indian Express, which are important from UPSC Prelims exam perspective. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. The first question of today's discussion is based on this news article which has appeared on the page number 15 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the food price index, which is released by Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. In this index, UNFAO has highlighted that the food prices across the world has hit a record high in 2022, and the major reason which is given by the organization is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. You must be aware that United Nations and its agencies are important for the UPSC Prelims exam, and UPSC has previously asked many questions on indices. As you can see in the year 2016, UPSC has asked about Global Hunger Index. In this question, you are required to identify the indicators of Global Hunger Index. You can pause this video and try a hand on this. On the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ on Food Price Index, and it says, with reference to food price index, which of the following statements is or are correct? In this question, you are being given three statements and you need to identify which of the following are correct. The first statement says, this index is released by Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations. It is a correct statement, as we have discussed in the description that FAO Food Price Index is a measure of monthly change in the international prices of food commodities. So, it is a correct statement. The second statement says, it consists of the average of 5 commodity group price indices. It is a correct statement, as the food price index includes 5 commodity groups, which includes cereals, meat, dairy, vegetables, and sugar. So, this statement becomes correct. The third statement says, this index was introduced in 2014 as a public good to help in monitoring developments in the global agricultural commodity markets. It is an incorrect statement, as this index was started in 1996 and not in 2014. So, this statement becomes incorrect. And the answer to this question becomes C, which is 1 and 2 only. And the answer to the previous year question is also C, as all three are the indicators of the Global Hunger Index. And you must be aware that Global Hunger Index, which was previously released by this organization, is now released by Concern Worldwide and World Hunger Health. Try to remember this fact. Now moving on to the next question, which is based on this news which has appeared on page number 13 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the delimitation exercise which is going to be held in Assam. Now why this delimitation exercise is required? According to the Constitution of India, the boundaries of assembly constituencies should be updated after every decadal census, just to ensure that the population in each seat is roughly the same across the state. As delimitation exercise is an important part in the election process in our country, this area becomes important for our discussion. As UPSC in 2012 has specifically asked about the Delimitation Commission, so we must be aware about the key fact associated with this commission. In this question, you are being given two statements and you need to identify which of the following are correct. On the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ on Delimitation Commission, and it says, consider the following statements with reference to Delimitation Commission. The first statement says, Delimitation Commission is appointed by the Election Commission of India. It is an incorrect statement, as this commission is appointed by the President of India and not by the Election Commission. But it works in close collaboration with the Election Commission of India. So you must remember this fact. The second statement says the delimitation in India has been done only 4 times since independence. It is a correct statement, as delimitation in India has been done in 1952, 1963, 1973 and 2002. So it has been done for the 4 times since independence. The last statement of this question says, orders of Delimitation Commission can be challenged in the Supreme Court of India. This statement is incorrect, as the orders of Delimitation Commission cannot be called into question before any court of law in the country. So this statement becomes incorrect. And you need to identify the correct statements. The answer to this question becomes B, which is 2 only. And the answer to the previous year question is C, which is both 1 and 2. And you should remember that under Article 82 of the Indian Constitution, Parliament should enact Delimitation Act after the every decadal census. So it is the constitutional obligation on the Parliament. And the members of Delimitation Commission includes a serving or retired judge of Supreme Court, Chief Election Commissioner, or election commissioner nominated by the chief election commissioner, and the third one is state election commissioner. Try to remember this piece of information. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news which has appeared on page number 6 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the appointment of Chief Justice of High Courts by the Supreme Court Collegium. As the Supreme Court Collegium, which is headed by Chief Justice of India, will now have to decide on the appointments of Chief Justice of High Courts. As constitutional bodies and their appointments is a recurring theme in UPSC Prelims exam, this area becomes important for our discussion. In the year 2013, UPSC has asked this question in which you have to identify which of the following statement is correct. You can pause this video and try to solve this question. The practice MCQ in this regard says, consider the following statements. The first statement is, the Chief Justice of High Court is appointed by the President after the consultation with Chief Justice of India and the Governor of the state concerned. It is a correct statement, as the judges of High Court are appointed by the President and the Chief Justice of High Court is appointed by President after the consultation with Chief Justice of India and the Governor of the concerned state. The second statement says, a person appointed as a judge of High Court has to make and subscribe an oath before the President of India. It is an incorrect statement, as the judge of High Court has to make an oath before the Governor and not the President. So, this statement becomes incorrect. The third statement says, the Constitution does not specify the strength of a High Court and leaves it to the discretion of Parliament. It is again an incorrect statement, as every High Court consists of Chief Justice and such other judges as the President may from time to time deem necessary to appoint. So, it is the President and not the Parliament who decides the strength of a High Court. And we are required to identify the correct statements. The answer to this question becomes A, which is 1 only. And the answer to the previous question is C, as there is no procedure which is laid down in the Constitution of India for the removal of governor. Now moving on to the next question, which is based on this news which has appeared on page number 10 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the concerns of Santhal tribe which is going to protest for their claim on the Parasnath hill in Jharkhand. You must be aware that Jain community is already protesting for the sanctity of their holy place, which is known as Samed Shikharji on the Parasnath hills, and now on the similar lines, Santhal tribe has also asserted their claims to the holy hill. This area becomes important under the history section of our UPSC Prelims exam, and UPSC has previously asked many questions on tribes and tribal revolts. As you can see in the year 2020, UPSC has asked about Ulgulan. In this, you have to identify which of the following revolts is associated with this term. And the practice question which we have framed based on Santhal Revolt says, consider the following statements with reference to Santhal Revolt. You are being given 3 statements and you need to identify which of the following is or are correct. The first statement says, the Santhal Revolt was against the Mahalwari system imposed by colonial authorities. It is an incorrect statement, as this revolt was against the permanent settlement of 1793 and not the Mahalwari system. So this statement becomes incorrect. The second statement says the revolt was organized under the leadership of Digambar Biswas. Many of you must be aware that Digambar Biswas and Bisnu Biswas provided the leadership to the Indigo revolt and not Santhal. So this statement again becomes incorrect. The third statement says one impact of the revolt was creation of separate district for the community. It is a correct statement. After the suppression of rebellion by the British officers, the region between Bhagalpur and Rajmahal Hills was separated and named Santhal Pargana, and it is declared as a non-regulation district. So this statement becomes correct, and the answer to this question becomes C, which is 3 only. And the answer to the previous question is D, as Ulgulan is associated with the Birsa Munda revolt of 1899, and the main leaders for the Santhal revolt was Sidhu and Kanu. Remember this fact, as it can be asked in the UPSC Prelims exam. Now moving on to the next question, which is based on this news which has appeared on the page number 9 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the green bonds which RBI is going to issue, and they are named as sovereign green bonds. These bonds will be issued in 2 tranches, one in January and other in February, and the proceeds of these bonds will be utilized in reducing the carbon intensity of economy. As all the countries across the world are shifting towards the green economy, the topics of green bonds becomes important for our UPSC Prelims exam, and we must be aware about the characteristics of green bonds. In the year 2016, UPSC has asked about masala bonds, in which you are being given two statements and you need to identify which of the statements given below is or are correct. On the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ on green bonds, and it says, consider the following statements with reference to sovereign green bonds. The first statement says, green bonds are fixed income instruments to exclusively finance climate and environmental projects. It seems a general statement and it is a correct statement. We have also discussed this information in our description. The second statement says, these bonds are asset linked and backed by issuing entities' balance sheet. It is again a correct statement. You can get an idea about this statement from the name itself, which says sovereign green bond, and it means these bonds carry guarantees related to the repayment of principal and the payment of interest by the sovereign or the government. So this statement becomes correct. And the last statement says the investment in green bonds can qualify for statutory liquidity ratio. It is also known as SLR, as SLR is the minimum percentage of deposits which commercial banks are required to invest in the liquid assets such as government bonds. So this statement becomes correct. As we are required to identify the correct statements, the answer to this question becomes D, which is 1, 2 and 3. And the answer to the previous year question is C, which is both 1 and 2. Always try to keep a tab on such news which are directly related with the RBI or carbon-free economy. The last question of today's discussion is based on this news which has appeared on page number 9 in The Hindu. This news talks about the deployment of women unit of peacekeepers in the Abyei region of Sudan from India. It will be an all-women team which will be deployed there to keep a peace in Sudan. You must be aware that India is one of the largest troop contributing nation to the United Nations peacekeeping mission, as United Nations is an important theme in UPSC Prelims exam. This area becomes important for our discussion. In the year 2022, UPSC has specifically asked a question on United Nations General Assembly. Every year there is one or two questions directly from the United Nations or its associated bodies, so you must keep a tab on news which are related to United Nations. In this question, you are being given three statements and you need to identify which of the following are correct. We have framed one practice MCQ on United Nations Peacekeeping Force, and it says, consider the following statements regarding UN Peacekeeping Force. The first statement says, it is guided by the principles of consent, impartiality and non-use of force. It is a correct statement, as UN peacekeeping operation is guided by the three basic principles. The first one is consent of the parties, the second one is impartiality, and the third one is non-use of force except in self-defense and the defense of the mandate. So this statement becomes correct. The second statement says, decisions about establishment, maintenance operations are taken by UN General Assembly. It is an incorrect statement, as these decisions are taken by United Nations Security Council and not by the United Nations General Assembly. So this statement becomes incorrect. The last statement says the first two peacekeeping operations deployed by UN are still operational. It is a tricky statement and you will be surprised that it is a correct statement, as the first two peacekeeping operations which were deployed by UN, they are still in operation and they are named as UN Truce Supervision Organization and United Nations Military Observer Group in India and Pakistan. Both of these missions continue operating to this day. So it is a correct statement. As we have to identify the correct statements, the answer to this question becomes D, which is 1 and 3 only. And the answer to the previous year question is D, as all the statements given above are correct.